incredibly deep and raw, and we've got to find a way. I don't think everybody can just keep repeating their same mantras. If we've got to change the language before we can change the law.
How do we change the language, right? That's one of the questions. Marc Harrold, as a former police officer, just wondering in your own personal experience, and we talked a moment ago about, the notion that, there are issues or tensions, a divide between, let's say, city leaders and police. That's not new. It's not new in New York. It's not new, in other places nationwide. What kind of language would we talk about changing the narrative, changing the language. What would you want to hear as a former officer? How do you overcome this distrust?
Well, distrust comes from not being familiar. I think what I'm hearing over and over, and I do think we need to take a step back. There still needs to be funerals here. There still needs to be respect for these particular officers. The politics are, of course, interwoven with all of this. But I think this is a time for calm and to some degree a time of reflection to respect these officers. But beyond that, I think what I'm hearing over and over, and I'm not a New Yorker, but what I'm hearing over and over is that this administration, this mayoral administration, has distanced itself a little bit. It's not as well known to the brass, the rank and file police officer. There's not as much conversation. A lot of this, look, there's always going to be tension between politicians and law enforcement officers. You put in a career with the law enforcement department, you basically feel like you live there and the politicians are just renting. They come, they go. The politics change with the electorate. But look, those city leaders have got to go out and find a way to reach out, to talk to these police officers, show that they understand the very unique nature of law enforcement, and have those conversations. I think what we've had here is a breakdown of personal relationships. And again, whether it's a union boss, whether it's an elected leader, the politics of blame, the politics of fear get absolutely nowhere. It's not helpful. And to some degree, I do think we need to step back, like the governor said, at this point, have some calm, and then move forward after these officers are buried.
Let me loop back to you, and I think the point is taken, and also I believe that the mayor has asked for the protest, at least in the New York area, to pause. Let's, bury these two police officers, and everything I've read and understood is they're respecting those wishes and will be doing so. But back to you, sir, and your point about changing the language. How should the language change?
I think it has to be a language of reconciliation and a language of look, some of us may have spoken out of turn in the past. When I ran, I think the mayor has to say he ran a campaign that was seen by the police as anti-police. Let's just face it. And when he brought his son into the conversation, during these protests, and said I had to teach my son basically to watch out for police, that naturally angered a lot of police. And he has had an attitude that seems to be somewhat dismissive of how much has been achieved in the city. But the police have to also understand that there are some grievances within the African American community that need to be addressed and heard, and the mayor is trying to give voice to those, and I think the police also have to understand. I thought Pat Lynch was way out of hand the other day as the head of the union to say the blood's on his hands.
David Gergen, Marc Levine, thank you so much. And also Marc Harrold for me in Washington. I appreciate all of you. Again, we're waiting to hear. We'll talk so much about it. We're still now waiting to hear from the message. I'm sorry, I'm talking to my